welcome to today's lesson about fossil fuels and fractional distillation. We will discuss oil, what it's made of and where it comes from. We will talk about hydrocarbons, and finally our most challenging aspect will be fractional distillation. So let's start off with where all this oil came from. Hopefully this is a review for most of you. Oil is a type of fossil fuel. And this is where fossil fuel comes from. Tiny plants and animals, millions of years ago, die in the ocean. They are then covered by sand and mud. Their remains cannot rot because there is no oxygen under all that sand and mud. After years of massive heat and pressure, oil is made. Oil is less dense than water, so it rises through the sand until it reaches hard rock. The oil forms an oil trap under this reservoir rock. We have all seen videos of oil being mined. The oil that we see come out of the ground is called crude oil. Crude oil is a mixture of a bunch of different stuff. All this stuff can be useful, but when it's mixed together, it is not. Crude oil is full of compounds that contain carbon and hydrogen. These compounds are called hydrocarbons. Hydrocarbons are molecules that contain only carbon and hydrogen. Hydrocarbons are simply chains of carbon surrounded by hydrogen. They can be long or short. Short ones look like this, and bigger ones look like this. Different sized molecules can serve different purposes. Hydrocarbons are incredibly important. One of their most important uses is as fuel. We also use them to create a wide range of different kinds of materials, mostly plastics. Here's a list of hydrocarbons, along with their chemical formula. You are probably familiar with a few of them, such as propane and butane, maybe even methane. As I've said before, crude oil is made out of hydrocarbons. Crude oil is a mixture of all different sized hydrocarbons. As I've said before, crude oil is pretty much useless, so we have to make it useful. To make it useful, we have to separate the hydrocarbons. We separate the hydrocarbons and we sort them into molecules of similar size. The process of sorting the molecules, or the hydrocarbons, into similar size is called fractional distillation. We are able to separate these hydrocarbons because we know a very simple fact. We know that the bigger the molecule, the higher the boiling point. That means that smaller hydrocarbons will boil faster, whereas bigger hydrocarbons boil later at higher temperatures. And so that's how fractional distillation works. We take crude oil and we heat it up. The smaller hydrocarbons will heat up first, and they will go to the top. The larger molecules stay lower, where it's hotter. Here's a written description of what I just described. You might want to pause the video here and record some notes to help you remember. Here's an example of how crude oil, when heated, can be separated into more useful substances. Here you can see that fuel and petroleum have a much lower boiling point. They are made of smaller hydrocarbons and have a lower boiling point. Here we can see bitumen. Bitumen has a very high boiling point, so we could assume that it is made of much larger molecules. Here are some examples of what we can do with these substances once they've been separated from crude oil. take a minute to take down some examples. So, to recap, crude oil is made of hydrocarbons. It is made of small and large hydrocarbons. Crude oil is useless because all of the different size hydrocarbons are all mixed together. We want to separate the hydrocarbons into their different sizes. We are able to do this using fractional distillation. Fractional distillation heats up crude oil. Different size molecules, or hydrocarbons, boil at different temperatures. Smaller molecules have a lower boiling point. Larger molecules have a higher boiling point. When hydrocarbons are properly sorted and collected, they can be used. They can be used to make different fuels and different materials.